Welcome to your Sprinkle of Hope podcast and your host, Jason. And today we have the awesome opportunity to interview Dr. Shawne. She is super, super cool, does a lot of work in forgiveness and hope and talks about gratitude and just overcoming some grief and working through that. Shares a couple of really great books that hopefully you take the time to go and read those if you're dealing with grief and things in your life. But so grateful for her. Thank you, Dr. Shawne, for coming on with us. And here we go.
Welcome to the Sprinkled with Hope podcast.
This is Jason. And this is Shane.
And it's podcast time.
Welcome to your Sprinkle with Hope podcast and your host, Jason. And we are so excited to have Dr. Shawne with us today, who is up for a nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize for her work on forgiveness, right?
Yes, we were nominated just a short while ago. And the reason I'm even saying this is because I'm noticing all the Nobel Prize winners are being announced this week.
Yes.
We win, and we're okay with just being nominated.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, right? Just to be on a nominee is phenomenal. So let's talk about that work that you're doing on forgiveness. What does that entail, and what kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And you know, Jason, you had me at Sprinkled with Hope. You had me at hope because hope is so underrated.
Yes.
And I want to talk about hope. And of course, forgiveness to me is the deeper layer of personal and professional development. And we were nominated for a little tool that we created called Accepting the Apology You'll Never Receive. And it is a tool that allows you, because forgiveness only happens here inside. We cannot control people, change people, make them do what we want them to do. What we do have bandwidth around and facility around is our own ability to look at ourselves, how we're going to act or react. We get to make those choices, those micro decisions every single day. So we created this tool. If there's somebody that is just driving you freaking nuts, okay, because we all have someone like that,
right?
And how to soothe yourself so you're not reactive, you're not seen as this mean, nasty woman in my case. It's actually practicing what you preach if you really believe in being a loving, exquisite, forgiving human being.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels like there's a piece of that's compassion too, right? Like there's some compassion built in to forgiveness that, you know, if you have compassion on someone else and just, hey, they may be having a bad day or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. You know, here's a great way to say the tool, because compassion is the key. And it's actually compassion for yourself first. It's almost like you have to put on your oxygen first before you can give oxygen
right
on the airlines. So this is how the tool was created, and it's all about compassion. I have a neighbor that drives me nuts. I just look at him and I'm annoyed. Like, I swear to God, that's straight truth. Like, I'd go out to get the mail, and he'd say, "Good morning, Dr. Shawne," and I could already feel the heebie-jeebies coming on and the annoying. And I'd say, "Yeah, but Bob, it's 6 p.m. He'd say every single time, "I know, but you look like you just got up." Like, those are the kinds of annoying little things he'd say, okay? So I had to make a choice. I'm known as the forgiveness lady. Gosh, we reach hundreds of millions a month in social. It's a big premise of my consulting agency, forgiveness. And I'm not being very forgiving with as annoying as I am with this Bob neighbor. So what I started to do is I started to pretend in my mind, and he wasn't doing this, I started to pretend that he was apologizing to me. He was not apologizing. Our brains are very powerful things. So as soon as he'd say something like, you know, "You look like you just got up," I pretend he's saying, "Oh, Dr. Shawne, here I go again. Every time I get near you, I get socially awkward. The wrong stuff comes out of my mouth every single time. I really struggle with really generating and connecting with people. I so want to connect with you. I put my foot in my mouth. Would you forgive me? I'm really working on this." Now, when I say that he's saying it to me, I immediately soothe and calm down. I go back to my grounded, loving, exquisite self. And the stuff that comes out of my mouth actually is compassionate because I've soothed myself in his presence. And that's where we have the power. How do we soothe ourselves? Now, here it is many years later. This was done like in 2015 when I first started practicing. Since we do this tool in corporations across the globe, we do it on Facebook. We do it everywhere. And people are actually getting relief and having breakthroughs in the moment when you're so triggered. I use that word triggered in quotes, that you want to kill someone.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. And so it really, really works. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how would they get a hold of you or be able to use this tool and work with you to figure this out and help themselves in a time where maybe they don't feel like they could forgive?
Yeah, you're so sweet. Lots of corporations find me through our website, ShawneTV.com, and it's Shawne with an E, or they find out about us on Project Forgive, maybe on Facebook in particular. We have a Project Forgive website. It's usually though through our Facebook Lives. So I do Facebook Lives every Monday,
Awesome.
focusing on joy, hence why I got sucked into sprinkling hope. Joy is a habit. People think joy is so connected to forgiveness. Hope is so connected to the construct of forgiveness. Forgiveness is diligent work. It's mindful work. And there's a lot of stages to forgiveness. Shock, anger, grief, acceptance, peace, and actually gratitude. Shock, anger, grief, acceptance, peace, and even gratitude. We've condensed those steps. They're not like, oh, you do one step and you check it off. You do the next step and you
Right.
check it off. It's not like that. It's very nonlinear. So one day you might be really ticked off. 2 days later, you might feel some acceptance about that, which might entail some hope that you'll get through it. So you meander through all these pieces with using faith and hope to help you get through some of those really, really tough times like grief. We all get stuck in grief. And grief is a tough one to be with because, we see grief as, oh, I don't want to be a whiny baby. Oh my gosh, look at me suffering. No, grief is a powerful tool that actually is the most transformative property of forgiveness.
Yeah, I love that you end in gratitude as well, because I think gratitude is a huge piece to just really everything we do. We need to be grateful for. We're just so surrounded by things all day long that sometimes we're not grateful for what's right in front of us. And I was thinking about this last night when I was filling a jug full of water out of my tap, and I was thinking, man, I am just a spoiled brat, right? Because I have the ability to turn on a faucet, get fresh cold water right at my fingertips, and yet there's some that don't have that option, right?
Yes. And actually what you're saying is facilitating joy as a habit, because no matter how horrible the circumstances, and believe me, I've been through my own horrible circumstances, many, 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 many. And in the midst of those horrible circumstances, it's not to deny your feelings or your upset. It's the ability to find those little moments and cultivate them like a habit. Like when your water pours out, like, oh my gosh, I am so blessed to have water because many people don't have it. So I'm just going to relish in this moment of joy and gratitude that I actually have running water. And I do that a lot with Gerber daisies. I love Gerber daisies. I've even told my children, when I'm passed and I'm no longer on this earth, whenever you see a Gerber daisy, it's me telling you I love you. Please, okay? And so whenever I see a Gerber daisy, I can just feel the joy shoot through my body. No matter what feeling I'm having in the moment, no matter what's going on, blah, 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 blah. Yes, spot on with that gratitude.
Well, and I see the word joy behind you, right? I also see some daisies or some sunflowers behind you. And so, yeah, I think joy and flowers and things like that do help lift us up when we're feeling down and crummy. And I know that that's why I really enjoy springtime, because those flowers just start coming up and blooming and
I love
it just, yes.
And it's neat to have little reminders around your space.
Yeah.
Because your space is your environment that actually develops your mood, what your attitude, everything. I have the word joy all over my house. I just got something that brings me so much joy. I love Moana. Do you know the
Oh
Moana?
yeah, the movie Moana.
Yeah. The what I love the most is Tafiti at the very end when that if you haven't seen the movie, there's this fire flame, evil mother
Yep.
energy at the end, and Moana faces her in all her courage and is loving to her. It moves me every single time because I think it's so
Oh
moving.
yeah.
And she actually transforms this heinous monster back into who she really is, Tafiti, this beautiful goddess garden lady. And I had a friend mail me this picture of Moana hugging Tafiti, and it brings
Uh,
me to tears. It reminds me who I am. Every time I walk in the bathroom, it's up in my bathroom. So those little pieces that bring you joy, that move you to presence, and and hope is one of those things, because that picture to me is all about hope that I can be whom I want to be, hope for you that you can be who you want to be, because we have only so much time here on earth. We really do. And we think we have time, and we don't. And who am I? That's my mantra all the time. Who am I going to be today? Who am
yeah.
I going to be today?
So I got to ask you, what is your take on fear being something that will come in and kind of destroy that joy and gratitude and all the ability to forgive, all of those things? How does fear affect all of that?
Yeah. I kind of see fear like a dichotomy, and it's much more complex than two choices. On one hand, you can choose love, and I don't necessarily mean romantic love. I mean love
Right.
in a business meeting, like where the ideas are flowing. And in that love space, ideas flow, there's connection. No matter how challenging it is, you can still laugh. There's this deep connection. And to me, fear is everything else.
Mm,
It's everything else. Fear encompasses procrastination, because sometimes we procrastinate because we don't maybe know why. It might be hidden because maybe we really are being deeply successful. Another type of fear is arrogance. When
mm,
someone's really arrogant, and when I'm frightened, I go arrogant on a dime. I'm one of those people. It really is fear. And if you think about it, you have to have some degree of arrogance to be a doctor, to be a reporter, to
sure.
be in the limelight. You have to have some capacity to think you can do it. And the flip side, though, is sometimes when you're scared, you appear arrogant. So fear falls in that realm. So my choice is a lot during the day. If I can feel fear coming on, lack of confidence, any of those pieces, or feeling like doing even sideways jokes that don't land correctly, that's
Right.
fear-based too. And so a lot of my mantras are about, what am I going to choose right now? I can be in love space or the fear space. Where am I going right now? I love that you touched on upon that, because in that fear space, it's really hard to access hope. And I see hope as a bridge to joy. Like we looked at those as two dichotomies. Hope would be a bridge to joy, so would forgiveness. And I don't know if you've been watching this. There's a show on Netflix called The Sandman. Have you heard about that?
I haven't. I'll have
So
to check this out.
yeah, there's one episode in particular that's all about hope.
Oh
And I'm like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, this is just freaking amazing. And my husband's not big on the word hope. He's just not. Okay. Hope is not a strategy. People say that.
Yeah, I've heard it over and
And
over.
that, and what if hope wasn't as you defined it? What if it was something more beautiful, more intimate, more personal, something that's a bridge that gives you access to deep connection? And that's how I see hope. And there's that episode in Sandman that's just exquisite on hope.
I love that. It almost feels like, as you're talking about this bridge, right? So we have these fears that we're afraid of, things that hold us back from really becoming our true self, right? And so this hope could be that bridge, or there's these other pieces too, right? For forgiveness and joy, gratitude, all of these things are like that bridge and I'm like have this picture in my mind of what that looks like.
Yes.
Um, that's a cool analogy, and I like the visual.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah.
I love talking about these kinds of things. I think that we often get stuck or whatever you want to call it in a situation or a relationship or whatever it is. And we're just not sure how to move forward. What is maybe a tip or a trick that you have that you can use to kind of move you from this spot where you feel like you're at and you just you're just not sure where to go, what to do next?
I love it. That's a great question. How I would respond to that, two ways. First is, you already know. We already know. It's just buried with crap and we can't access it. So it's about getting to almost like barnacles on a boat.
Yeah.
We all know what to do. It's just the confusion is sometimes a way to mask or sabotage making the ultimate choice, right? One of the things that I do to get to those barnacles of the boat, and that I give a lot of my training participants, is practicing forgiving yourself for not being forgiven. You can get stuck, right? Like, let me try to think, is there something that I'm upset about? I have one thing that I'm upset about right now that I can think of top of mind. You're always going to go through life being upset about stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Always. It's just part of being human. And I'm not quite ready to let that one go. I have feelings about that one. So whenever I start feeling self-guilt or self-doubt about that particular situation, I might say something to myself, oh, sweetheart, oh, angel, can you forgive yourself because you're not ready to forgive? Can you forgive yourself because forgiveness isn't an option right now? We have so many misnomers around forgiveness. We think it's forgive and forget, hogwash.
Right.
Who's going to forget that their child was murdered? That ain't happening.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Forgive and remember is our motto. We love to blast those myths. And forgiveness is a process. It's different for everybody. There's the same tenets and themes to forgiveness. There's been hundreds of thousands of research studies on the topic of forgiveness. There are some basic themes. That's why I always talk about the 5 stages. And it's as unique as your fingerprint. Your process, your journey of forgiving or moving forward or making a choice is as distinct as your fingerprint. And only you know what is the best choice for you. And it's almost like, have you ever heard the term gaslighting?
Yep.
Yeah. I've recently been just talking about and looking at my own version of gaslighting myself. And gaslighting myself is about invalidating how you're feeling right now in this moment. Like, I feel really angry about that, but I shouldn't. I should be grateful because blah, 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 blah. That is just crap. That is gaslighting yourself. Right. Feelings are just feelings. They're just feelings. They come and go. And the more we shovel them down and push them away, the more they come up in inappropriate ways. Like your child leaves their sink on the dish and you just go ballistic because you've been cramming down all the other stuff, invalidating yourself, gaslighting yourself. That energy's got to come out somewhere.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. With my husband, we practice this thing. You know what? I need a 20-minute break. I can't talk about this right now because all I want to do is win. And when I want to win, we're doomed.
Yeah.
Like that, wanting to be right, you know?
Yeah, wanting to be right.
So we have even language in our marriage like, oh, I'm trying too hard to win. Something's going on for me that I got to win this. And you're never going to win. And we're never going to get together on this, at least not while I'm in this space. A little break. We do that all the time.
That was a pretty profound statement. Gaslighting ourselves. I think that we do that. That is just, that hit me when you said that, like, holy smokes. Because whenever I think of gaslighting, I'm always thinking of me doing it to somebody else or somebody else doing it to me, right? Not me to myself.
Yes. And if you dig a little deeper, let's say someone is gaslighting you, they're invalidating you, they're whatever they're doing to gaslight you.
Right.
My conversation is always, okay, that person's gaslighting. Where can I go deeper into myself? Where am I invalidating and gaslighting myself? Because that's the only place we got the power.
Right.
That's where we got the power. And it's almost in some ways not to discount someone doing something of betrayal or gaslighting or invalidation. Ultimately, though, we're the only ones that can validate ourselves.
Mm.
We're the only ones that can do that. Hoorah! If you grew up in a parenting home where your parents validated and loved you up and gave you tons of self-esteem and blah, 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 blah. Most of us, a lot of us didn't grow up that way. Our parents did the best they could, you know, generations keep changing.
Yep.
And when do you get to the point where you're accountable for yourself and validating yourself? That's a powerful place to be.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow, right? That it's on us to make those changes and things in our life that we need to make, and I think that's maybe sometimes where people get stuck, is it's like, yeah, you got the power to do what you want to do, so just make the decision and go for it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So good.
And you know, this piece of hope, I really just want to get this in there. Let me see if I got a book that I'm reading that I love. I always love to share things that I'm reading or looking at. And there's this book called From Scratch by author Tembi Locke. I just started reading it. And it's actually going to be on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
It comes out soon. I think it's a 6-part, like, small series. And it's a book about love, loss, and forgiveness. And I've been immersed in this book, allowing myself to grieve along with Tembi. You learn right off the top that she lost her husband. And so you go through her journey of grief. And I know many of us can relate to journeys of grief. I'm like in the midst, just before COVID, I lost my mother, my father, and my sister.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
3 types of cancer right in succession. And I'm just getting my sea legs, right? Using the boat analogy. And I've been able to deeply grieve reading this book during hospice. It's particular with my sister because she's the first one that went, and it was so shocking, and everyone else was sick, so there wasn't a whole lot of space or groundedness to really grieve the loss of my big sister. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I find books like this can actually help you move and be present and move through some of your grief, because grief is such a transformative property. So I just really encourage folks. From Scratch is a good one. Another one that I just got, you might have heard about it. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's called I'm Glad My Mom Died. Those with complicated grief. And the reason I'm bringing these up with you, Jason, is because hope is such an important word. It says a lot of, even when you guys first contacted me, it says a lot about what you care about, what's important to you, your authenticity, what matters to you. So I felt vulnerable enough to share these 2 books in particular. I don't get any money from sharing, I'm just saying that. Okay. It just felt like the right place to do that, especially with the folks that listen to your podcast.
No, thank you for sharing those. I'm all about sharing, good books that I'm into, and how to help people and as much as possible. So thank you for sharing those, and really speaking on about hope. Shane and I, we do this thing called the double down dose, and it's 2 questions right at the very end of the podcast we ask all of our guests.
Okay.
And so the first one is, what is your definition of hope? Or how would you define it?
All right. So I've never been asked that question, and I have to preface it with this, because Project Forgive is part of our company. We're non-religious, non-partisan. I would say hope equals God to me. That would be my definition of the essence of God. You can tell.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And
that's my personal opinion. Okay.
Sure.
I'm not speaking in a corporate capacity. That's my personal spiritual beliefs. Hope to me equals the essence of God. Because if you don't have hope, how can you access God?
I love it.
Yeah.
We love asking these 2 questions because I think it brings it brings so much to the surface for people, and I love just getting everybody's take on it. It's so different, but there is a common thread, right, between all of them. So the second question to the double down dose is, how would you define love?
Wow, these are really good questions. I would say Love is the only thing that's real and true.
Mm.
It's the only thing that's real and true. It's tangible, it's intangible, it's physical, it's non-physical. And when you're in that space of love, groundedness, you just know it. You
Mm.
know? It's a knowing.
So good. That's so good. We love asking these two questions because they're very simple in what they are, right? And that we all talk about hope and love, and but oftentimes, at least with most of the guests we've had on, they maybe didn't quite stop and think about what love actually is. I think sometimes people think about it in the romantic sense, and it's like, well, you could love your dog or a coworker, and that's not anywhere close to that, right? So thanks for coming on with us today, Dr. Shawne. We so appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and just coming on and sharing, what hope and love mean to you and to the world, and sharing that message is so, so important to us and obviously to you, right? And so thank you for coming on.
My absolute joy.